Hi, and welcome back to Mary Trump Live. I'm Brian Karam, sitting in for Mary today, who is enjoying some much-needed time off. I want to thank you for joining me. It's been 2 weeks since Donald Trump started a war in Iran. Just 2 weeks. We still have no idea what the imminent threat was that prompted him to bomb Iran, but it's apparent with today's news of sending in more than 2,000 Marines to shore up our defenses in the Middle East that the war isn't going to be over anytime soon. Members of Congress say privately there's a real fear of a forever war, while others fear something even more lethal. What a way to end the week. Let's dive in. Hey, as most of the nation slept last night, the President of the United States, that would be Donald Trump, for those of us who've forgotten, he was rage posting on his failing social media site. Here's a taste of what he had to say just after midnight when he let it all hang down. We are totally destroying the terrorist regime of Iran, militarily, economically, and otherwise. Yet, if you read the failing New York Times, you would incorrectly think that we are not winning. We have unparalleled firepower, unlimited ammunition, and plenty of time. Watch what happens to these deranged scumbags today. They've been killing innocent people all over the world for 47 years, and now I, as the 47th President of the United States of America, am killing them. What a great honor it is to do so. Thank you for your attention to this matter. That's the President of the United States sounding like he's playing a video game. Anyway, this morning, Secretary of Excursions, Pete Hex, and I love that term. Anyway, Pete Hex has held a press briefing at the Pentagon, joined by Joint Chiefs Chairman, General Raising Dan Kane, to give an update on the Trump regime's military campaign against Iran. There it is, attacking the press, declares victory. But Hegseth isn't just at war with Iran. He's also at war with the media. Hegseth sharply criticized press coverage and accused reporters of emphasizing setbacks and controversy instead of what he described as the military success in the campaign. All right, let's watch.
Some in this crew, in the press, just can't stop. Allow me to make a few suggestions. People look up at the TV and they see banners, they see headlines. I used to be in that business. And I know that everything is written intentionally. For example, a banner or a headline, Mideast war intensifies, splashing on the screen the last couple of days, alongside visuals of civilian or energy targets that Iran has hit, because that's what they do. What should the banner read instead? How about Iran increasingly desperate? Because they are. They know it, and so do you, if it can be admitted. Or more fake news from CNN. Reports that the Trump administration underestimated the Iran war's impact on the Strait of Hormuz. Patently ridiculous, of course. For decades, Iran has threatened shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. This is always what they do, hold the strait hostage. CNN doesn't think we thought of that. It's a fundamentally unserious report. The sooner David Ellison takes over that network, the better. Another example of a fake headline that I saw yesterday, war widening. Here's a real headline for you for an actual patriotic press. How about Iran shrinking, going underground? You see, Iran's leaders are hiding in bunkers and moving into civilian areas. The only thing that is widening is our advantage.
Let's be honest. First of all, Pete, you were never in my business. You're an idiot. You sat there. You were a talking head who loved his makeup and still do. You have about as much ability to be the head of the Department of Defense as I do being a brain surgeon. You're a moron. You're an idiot. You are an anathema to the democratic process. You want state-run media. You don't get to come out and criticize us. We're there to question you. We're there as the people's representative, questioning the people who are making the decisions about the government and how it affects us. You need to shut up and do your job, but you're incapable of doing that. So how about you just shut up and get another haircut? Sorry, that's my rant. Secretary Pete, who, remember, only likes to be photographed, from his good side and definitely don't show his bulbous posterior. He then went on to explain that he gets it and that the Strait of Hormuz would be open today if only the enemy would stop bombing it. Check this out.
I want to emphasize what the chairman said about that. The only thing prohibiting transit in the Straits right now is Iran shooting at shipping. It is open for transit should Iran not do that. Now, there's a reason why we chose as one of our primary objectives destroy the Navy. We understood the ability to interdict shipping is something Iran has done for 40 years. It's key terrain. They've used it as leverage. The world is seeing what they'll do to fight back in that context. And so we've heard them talk about taking various measures, and we're planning for all of them. So we have a plan for every option here. We're working with our interagency partners, and that's not a strait we're going to allow to remain contested or with a lack of flow of commercial goods. So we're aware of that. We're laser focused on our military objectives, but also want to make sure our partners across this government understand we're working with you to make sure that energy flows. And that's an important part.
So in other words, the strait is closed, which is in direct violation of what Donald Trump, or contrary to what Donald Trump said the day before, that it's open and it will be made safe. Remember, it's closed. Well, thank you for that, Pete. You took about 5 minutes too long to confirm the fact that you're an idiot. Anyway, there are real updates in the war in Iran. All 6 crew members aboard a U.S. Air Force KC-135 refueling tanker were killed after the aircraft crashed in western Iraq while supporting operations against Iran. U.S. Central Command said the crash followed an unspecified incident involving 2 aircraft operating in friendly airspace, and the other plane landed safely. Officials say the cause is still under investigation, but was not due to hostile or friendly fire. For those who want to know, having covered the military for a while, this is a refueling incident more than likely, but we'll have to wait and see. The crash raises the U.S. death toll in Operation Epic Fury, or Epstein Fury, to at least 13 service members, including 7 killed in combat. The Pentagon has also reported about 140 U.S. troops injured, 8 of them severely. The tanker is the 4th U.S. aircraft acknowledged to have crashed during the war. The incident follows 3 F-15 fighter jets that were mistakenly shot down last week by friendly Kuwaiti fire. The White House responded to this tragedy, comically, of course, and horrifyingly tragically. It has been posting war propaganda videos that compare real U.S. strikes in Iran and the death of human beings to video games like Grand Theft Auto and a couple of movies, turning deadly combat into memes and comedy. Yeah, I couldn't believe it unless I saw it, and I did. More unbelievable disrespect. Just watch. Hey, are there any adults left at the White House? Just one. Do you realize how stupid, arrogantly unfunny, and completely horrific that is? Is there no freaking bottom to your shame? Do you have any idea how creepy you are? I guess not. The question that still remains, though, now that oil sanctions have been lifted from Russia and they're making $500 million to $1 billion a day on skyrocketing oil prices, does the Trump regime even really think Putin is helping the enemy? Donald Trump answered that question himself this morning on Fox News Radio's Brian Kilmeade show. Let's listen.
You think Putin is helping him?
I think he might be helping him a little bit, yeah, I guess. And he probably thinks we're helping Ukraine, right?
And you are, right?
Yeah, we're helping him also. And so he says that. And China would say the same thing, you know. It's like, hey, they do it and we do it, in all fairness.
Yeah, well, you know what this is? This is a proxy war, folks, and this is the beginning. We're in World War III. Believe it or not, that's where we are. Hopefully, it doesn't get any hotter. Hopefully, right now, the best we can hope for is Vietnam. That's the plain fact of the matter. Here's some additional updates on the war that you should consider. The United Nations Refugee Agency says the war in Iran has already displaced up to 3.2 million people, with families fleeing Tehran and other major cities as fighting escalates and intensifies, though the Department of Defense will never admit that. The UN warns the humanitarian crisis is rapidly escalating and the number of displaced civilians is likely to rise. And today, it was reported that as many as 700,000 Lebanese citizens may have already been displaced. According to Al Jazeera and Reuters, tens of thousands marched worldwide today during Al-Quds Day, demonstrations supporting Palestinians in Iran as the U.S.-Israel war with Iran entered its 14th day, with at least 1,444 people reported killed and more than 18,000 injured in Iran since February 28th. Take a look at the U.S. protests here.
That is what a mass movement is.
Syria and Yemen. It also attacked 8 flotillas.
I've seen headlines and words said by this administration saying that Americans just don't want to sacrifice anymore. That's not the case. Americans will sacrifice for a cause if we know what the hell it is. We still don't know why we're in Iran. In an open table discussion with Iranian experts yesterday, Bernie Sanders asked Iran podcast host Negar Mortazavi about how the mainstream media is portraying the war. I say corporate media. Here's what she had to say.
How is American media covering the war? Are they covering it in what you would call an objective way?
Not enough, not objective. I mean, I don't want to generalize the entirety of the media, but mainstream media, legacy media, the gatekeepers, cable news, which most Americans follow, is not covering enough, is not covering objectively. I mean, the way Iranian children hit at an elementary school are covered is very different than, let's say, if Russia had opened the war in Ukraine with something like that. Or if Iran had done this in Israel. They haven't yet. Or the way Israel, for example, attacks on Gaza is covered in the media. That has been discussed a lot by analysts and media observers. But in general, I think sort of the dehumanization of those societies is what starts and eventually leads to these wars. In Afghanistan, we saw that. In Iraq, we saw that. In Iran, we see it. In Gaza with the Palestinians.
The dehumanization has been ongoing for centuries. It's what humans do to each other. The real problem with the media and corporate media is that we simply aren't reporting it. We're not covering it. We're not there. We're not even showing great, news video like we did during the first Gulf War when we showed, the missiles going down a chimney or knocking on a door and blowing up. None of that. We simply aren't reporting on it because why? The oligarchs and billionaires who owe Donald Trump and are in his back pants, they own the media, and they won't let us cover it. And that is a fact. Moving on, today, Cuba has confirmed, almost said Cuba. Cuba has confirmed it held recent talks with the United States as the island struggles through a severe energy crisis and widespread blackouts after months without petroleum shipments. Confirmation of the talks comes after repeated comments from Donald and senior officials claiming the United States is engaged in high-level discussions with Cuba. In recent weeks, Trump has also suggested that Cuba could ultimately, quote, fall, escalating the rhetoric surrounding those negotiations as millions of Cubans face power shortages affecting hospitals, transportation, and daily life, not to mention the fear of an invasion from the U.S. At the same time, Senators Tim Kaine, Ruben Gallego, and Adam Schiff have introduced a war powers resolution to prevent Donald from launching military action against Cuba without congressional approval. And that move comes after Donald openly floated the idea of a U.S. takeover of the island while negotiations were underway. Lawmakers warned the real risk here isn't just another reckless foreign policy stunt or a feckless one. It's a direct challenge to the Constitution, which gives Congress, not the president, the sole authority to declare war. But we've already seen Donald doesn't care about that. Meanwhile, testimony in federal courts has revealed new details about how immigration enforcement was carried out in Oregon. According to The Guardian, an ICE agent testified that officers used a custom-built phone app to help identify neighborhoods and individuals to target during operations while also working toward daily arrest goals. Quotas. The information surfaced in a class action lawsuit brought by the immigrant rights group Innovation Law Lab, which challenged ICE's practice of detaining people without warrants or probable cause. Advocates argued the tactic led to racial profiling, no kidding, and unconstitutional arrest, no duh, and a federal judge ultimately sided with the plaintiffs, there's a shock, issuing a ruling that broadly blocked warrantless immigration arrests in Oregon. You see, some people still appreciate the Constitution, and thank God a few of them that make a difference are judges. During a December hearing, an ICE officer identified only as JB said his unit of roughly 9 to 12 officers was verbally instructed to aim for 8 arrests per day as part of DHS's Operation Black Rose. Let me skip to the end on this, folks. This is Stephen Miller, who said at the very beginning of this and told everyone there would be daily quotas because they wanted to get rid of 10 to 20 million people that already aren't here. The hearing also appeared to be the first time ICE acknowledged in court using a tool called the Elite app, run by no other than Palantir to guide enforcement operations. An NBC News investigation is reporting that migrant children are being held in immigration detention far longer than the 20-day limit set by a long-standing federal court settlement meant to protect minors. One Russian asylum seeker, Alexei, said his wife and their 5-year-old twins were detained at the U.S. border and taken to the Dilley Immigration Processing Center in South Texas, where they expected to be released within the legal limited time. Instead, the days stretched into weeks while their children struggled inside what Alexei described as a remote prison-like facility. This is from the NBC article. 20 days came and went. Alexei and his wife watched their 5-year-old twins unravel at the remote prison-like facility. When he approached an ICE officer and asked why the deadline had been ignored, the officer said he had to take it up with his boss. "Who's that?" Alexei said. "Trump," was the response. Alexei later filed a written complaint, and an ICE officer said that the court settlement establishing the 20-day rule was not applicable anymore. We don't care about the rules. We don't need those stinking rules. Despite a court settlement limiting family detention to 20 days, monitors say the Trump regime has held more than 900 migrant children past that limit since January, with some detained for more than 80 days, others, that's almost 3 months, and others for longer than that, raising warnings from lawyers that prolonged detention is being used to pressure families to abandon asylum claims. NBC News also spoke with families describing the toll on children. Vilma Bautista Torres said she and her 9-year-old son with severe autism spent more than 80 days at Dilley before being released on parole, during which time he became increasingly distressed without therapy. In another case, 18-year-old Habiba Soliman and her 4 younger siblings, including twin 5-year-olds, have been detained with their mother for more than 9 months while fighting deportation to Egypt. 9 months. And I've seen this facility, folks. It ain't easy. I've been in jails that were better. In a phone call from the detention center, she stated, quote, "This place broke something in us, something that I don't know if we will ever be able to fix." In other ICE news today, Vermont protests continue. Take a look here.
Back up.
I got water, man. Here. Water.
Meanwhile, in some important health news, the Trump EPA has proposed weakening the 2024 ethylene oxide pollution rule by removing key monitoring and emissions requirements at medical sterilization plants. Those are facilities that sterilize about half of all U.S. medical devices, potentially increasing cancer-linked chemical exposure in nearby communities. Well, you know, if they can't kill you one way, they're going to kill you another. Donald Trump just doesn't care. He'll burn the whole damn thing down and rule over the embers. Meanwhile, according to news sources today, the economic shock from the U.S.-Israeli war with Iran is already ripping through the global economy. Oil prices surge after Iran threatened to keep the Strait of Hormuz, through which roughly 20% of the world's oil supply moves, closed, triggering what analysts describe as one of the largest energy supply shocks in modern history. And this is even bigger than, the oil and gas shortage in the 70s. Just remember, Donald Trump didn't bother to fill the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. He said we didn't need to. Even after the International Energy Agency released its largest ever emergency reserve of oil, prices rebound as attacks spread across Gulf shipping routes. The conflict is also driving up global shipping costs. Aid organizations report $3,000 emergency surcharges, 3,000 emergency surcharges per container, and 9,000 kilometer detours for food shipments, disruptions that ultimately raise prices for fuel, groceries, and consumer goods. Economists warn these costs trickle down directly to Americans. No kidding. Higher gas prices, more expensive mortgages, rising everyday costs, while energy companies and defense contractors see massive windfall profits during wartime. Well, let's move on to tariffs. We need some good news, right? As of today, a report from Congressional Democrats say Donald's tariffs could cost the average U.S. household about $2,512 in 2026. That's up 44% from $1,745 last year, as the administration tries to replace revenue lost after the Supreme Court struck down major tariffs. Let me remind you, they're still illegal, and they'll probably strike those down too. Wonder what's going to happen. Lawmakers warn the policy will drive up prices for everyday goods at a time when families are already struggling with inflation and rising energy costs tied to the Iranian conflict. But don't worry. Trump will save us with his meme coins or cryptocurrency or, we could buy MAGA hats. No, he's just continuing to enrich himself. Let me explain something so people understand. We're screwed, blued, and tattooed. 92,000 jobs were shed last month alone, and that's from the department that Donald Trump gutted because he didn't like the last time they gave him bad news on employment figures. So how bad is it really? We don't know. But you know what? Everyone knows there's less in your wallet today than there was yesterday, thanks to Donald Trump. Now let's take a look at the congressman from New York, Daniel Goldman. He comments on the effects of Donald Trump's illegal war on Iran and what it's really all about.
You do not send American troops, the American military, into a war that you are unprepared for and that you do not have any idea how the enemy is going to react. And so we're seeing Americans dying, injured. They don't even have an objective here. It's unclear entirely. I don't think they know what they're trying to do. Now we're seeing that they didn't anticipate that Iran would actually retaliate. Is that really what they're saying right now? And the ineptitude and the unpreparedness that is evident now that we're seeing is exactly why you don't rush into war to avoid talking about the Epstein files. And that is so clearly what is driving this.
Operation Epstein fury continues. Nobody knows why we're in it, but here's the real deal, folks. We ain't getting out anytime soon. That's a fact. Today, after reviewing unredacted Epstein files, Senator Ben Ray Lujan says he's convinced, quote, horrific and disturbing acts occurred at Jeff Epstein's Zorro Ranch in New Mexico and is demanding a full investigation. Take a look at that.
Hey everyone, I just had a chance to review some of these Epstein files in their unredacted form. What I can say is that I have more and more concerns about what happened in New Mexico. I want to commend the New Mexico legislators and the governor for what they did to demand more investigations around the Zorro Ranch. I'm more convinced today after reviewing these files that there needs to be a thorough investigation. It's already been 113 days since the legislation that I led in the Senate, we passed legislation out of the House and in the Senate to demand the release of these Epstein files has taken place. And we're still seeing the DOJ slow down everything. They still haven't fully released everything. What are they trying to hide? That's why I led this legislation in the Senate, working with colleagues like Jeff Merkley out of Oregon as well. It's clear President Trump's breaking the law. The Department of Justice is not following the law, arguably breaking it as well, because they're not releasing the documents. Get it done.
New Mexico launched a bipartisan, quote, truth commission, unquote, in February to investigate Epstein's activities at Zorro Ranch, funded with $2 million from a $15 million settlement with J.P. Morgan Chase and Deutsche Bank over their role in enabling Epstein's sex trafficking network. The commission, led by Representative Andrea Romero, has subpoena power and will examine what officials knew, why Epstein avoided charges in New Mexico for decades, and allegations of abuse at the ranch, with a preliminary report expected in July 2026. It says here I'm supposed to respond. You know what my response is? About damn time. For the love of God. We've had these files forever. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer, and there are rules for those who have money and rules for those of us who have not. And that, if someone will frame that in an argument this fall, they'll win an election. Because of the seriousness of today's news, let's close with a little mockery of the regime. I could do that for hours. They may be incompetent, and that doesn't mean they aren't dangerous, but sometimes the best thing you can do is laugh at them. I do that every day. So let's roll a few clips, chip away at the egos, and take a little of their power. I take all their power back. They don't need any of it. While we will be reporting the war this weekend, we will not have our regular programming, so please share and subscribe. Let's first take a look at my home state, the Commonwealth of Kentucky Congressman Jamie Comer, who claims he is investigating Jeff Epstein, but somehow keeps avoiding anyone actually connected to Epstein. Wonder how that works. He was asked on Fox TV this week about the search of the convicted sex offender's Zorro Ranch. Comer said something very interesting. He said the federal government called off an investigation into the same ranch in 2019. Let's see. Who was president in 2019? Oh, well, let's watch a clip and see if we can figure it out.
Sounds pretty sick if what's been said about it's true. What are you hearing? Well, I'm glad that the New Mexico authorities are going there and searching that property. I know that if no one searches the property, whenever this investigation is finally concluded, people are always going to have questions about whether or not there were deaths there, whether or not there were mysterious surgeries and things like that happening on the ranch. I don't know, but I do know this. The federal government asked New Mexico to stop their investigation, I believe back in 2019, of that ranch. So there's just so many questions about how the government failed the victims and how government failed in trying to prosecute Epstein sooner. I mean, this whole thing doesn't make sense.
Of course it makes sense. James, you're the problem. You're the one who keeps defending pedophiles. You're the one who defends Donald Trump. Hello? You're the problem. Anyway, next, let's see what Melania Trump, the visionary, that's what she calls herself, had to say yesterday in the East Room as part of the Women's History Month event. Watch and try not to vomit.
As a visionary, I know success is not born overnight, but rather takes shape after a long and sometimes challenging process. Often alone at the top, I follow my passion, listen to my instinct, and always maintain a laser focus. In solitude, my creative mind dances, filling my imagination with originality. Attention to detail, demanding schedules, and multitasking are everyday realities when building towards success. The principle resonates across all my roles as a mother, humanitarian, philanthropist, and entrepreneur. As well as with my new film, where I shaped its creative direction, served as a producer, managed post-production, and activated the marketing campaign. Curiosity is a core value that keeps me ahead of the curve. Curiosity begets knowledge, opening doors to ideas and industry that I have otherwise overlooked.
Well, let's be honest, Melania, your success came after a long delay and a pretty tight prenup. I just like watching Donald Trump in that video. I thought at any moment he's going to fall asleep and pass out. We were betting as it went down live, me and a few other reporters. I had the under on it, but we had an over under on whether he would fall down in the middle of that speech about her wonderful movie. Anyway, special envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, a New York real estate developer whose qualifications for Middle East diplomacy remain non-existent. I'm not going to say they're a mystery. He went on CNBC this week and was asked a question about how he would respond to those Americans with concerns about the war in Iran. His answer was, anyway, let's roll that clip.
Finally, on Iran, what do you say to Steve, Americans who, are struggling, they're worried about higher gas prices, higher grocery prices, health insurance, making ends meet, don't want foreign wars, certainly ones that don't have end dates and that risk American lives. What do you say to them about why this is so critical for the U.S. to be doing what it is doing in Iran right now? How do you persuade them?
I say to them, Sarah, that if they have children, think about what this world would look like if you didn't have Donald Trump as the president.
Yeah, it'd look a lot better. Look, I'm going to take umbrage with one thing she said, and that was wars without end dates. That plays into the psychodrama of the current presidency. You can't really set an end date on a war. You can set objectives and fulfill them. And we certainly didn't have an end date for World War II, but we had objectives and we achieved them. Clearly defined objectives, which we don't have, are needed in a war, and we need to know why we're going to war. And this moron Witkoff is about as sharp as a bowling ball. I mean, for the love of God, I've seen more DNA gathered in my son's tennis shoes after gone running than in this guy's head. So we'll leave it at that. Let's go with Elena Haba. Remember Elena Haba? She's Donald's former personal lawyer who was recently forced out as the top federal prosecutor in New Jersey after a federal appeals court ruled she had been serving in the job unlawfully. Like I said, thank God for the judiciary. This week, she went on Newsmax to criticize Kamala Harris for attending the funeral of the late Reverend Jesse Jackson. Yeah. Haba claimed that Harris didn't even know Jackson, but there was something about her language that seemed a bit, well, of course she knows Jackson. I was at the Democratic National Convention in 2024, and Harris and Jackson were together on stage. Anyway, see if you notice anything during this next clip.
I think if you look at Kamala Harris's, if you look at polls, Kamala Harris's comments of desperation at Reggie Jackson's funeral, and she didn't even know him. If you look at this, they're reaching so far, and the American people see it.
All I see is AI. It just looks like crap. Anyway, but Haba wasn't done embarrassing herself. Jesse, oh, by the way, I did notice the Mar-a-Lago face, too. Everybody's got that. Still, after the Donald defender, she continued and proved that she really doesn't know what words mean. Check it out.
We've seen it time and time again. And frankly, President Trump should be commended for being the only one with the cahoots, frankly, to go after them, not just for America, but for the world.
Cahoots? Reggie? Does this woman have a clue what the hell she's talking about? I'd be in cahoots with her if I decided she was smart. I'm not cahooting with her. She's a moron. And some breaking news now before we go. A federal judge has thrown out Justice Department subpoenas targeting Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, dealing a major blow to the investigation into whether he misled Congress about cost overruns in the Federal Reserve's headquarters renovation project. The judge ruled the subpoenas were improper and blocked prosecutors from obtaining the records they were seeking. Powell hasn't been charged with any crime, and the decision effectively shuts down the central legal effort behind the probe. United States Attorney for the District of Columbia, otherwise known as Judge Janine Pirro. You remember Janine? This story about Janine. Well, she responded to the ruling just a few minutes ago. Let's take a look.
One of the age-old tools that all prosecutors have to investigate any crime, including cost overruns, is a grand jury subpoena. Today, however, in Washington, an activist judge has taken that tool away from us by inserting himself and preventing the grand jury from even obtaining, let alone hearing evidence. He has neutered the grand jury's ability to investigate crime. As a result, Jerome Powell today is now bathed in immunity, preventing my office from investigating the Federal Reserve. This is wrong, and it is without legal authority. Ladies and gentlemen, no one is above the law.
Except Donald Trump. Neutered? That was actually due process. That was the system working. Neutered? What is it? I think I saw Janine Pirro. I think she was buying tank tops at Walmart last week. Just saying. Anyway, with that, we've reached today's emotional support moment. Sit back, relax, and enjoy Wild Zebras as they help you forget the never-ending news cycle for a brief moment. Enjoy. Well, with that, let's head to the questions. Lexia, shoot, baby. Yading Lee 7521 became a YouTube member. Woohoo! Thank you. And, well, you became a YouTube member twice. Thank you. Woohoo! Elizabeth Throw 5960, $2. Well ranted, Brian. Trust us, we agree. Sorry, I had to rant on that. Some of it's so damn stupid. At some point in time, and I get upset with members of the press who will laugh privately and then publicly act so damn serious about something they know means absolutely nothing. But I no longer suffer from that. I just celebrated my 61st birthday, and I am an official member of the I Don't Give a Shit Club. Thank you, Elizabeth. Ghostly 59, a $5 donation. Thanks, Brian. Thank you for filling in for Mary. We always enjoy when you visit. Really appreciate your opinions and reactions. Thank you, Ghostly Air 59. I always appreciate being here. You guys are great. Susan, I remember Susan Thompson, 5142, $10 donation. Donald lifting sanctions on Russia, who is providing intelligence to Iran on location of U.S. bases and military. Donald's okay with that. Is that not treason? Not in the Donald Trump world. You have to understand whatever Donald Trump wants, Donald Trump gets. And if Donald Trump believes it's okay to do it, Donald Trump will do it. And he won't care on the back end. Everything he says afterwards it's word salad. He does what he wants when he wants, and we may not understand why, but it's always because Donald in that given moment wants to do it. Of course, then there's the other excuse and the real reason why he does everything. Epstein files. I didn't say that. Moving on. Thanks, Susan. Oh, again, $5. Thank you, Brian. You're addressing our collective outrage. We love feisty, fired up Brian. Oh, you ought to see me around the 4th of July when I have fireworks. Tough room. Thank you, Susan. MKO 385, please check your voter registration status and do your homework on candidates. Yeah, more than that, folks. Again, 60% voter turnout is not a good voter turnout, though we think it is in this country. You need 75. You need 80% voter turnout. I've interviewed people at these No Kings rallies and other protests, and I asked them, do they vote? And they say no. If you will gather your belongings, carve out a poster, dress up, drive 30 miles, march for 8 hours to protest something you like, why don't you vote? More importantly, why don't you volunteer at the precincts? More importantly, get in a phone line. More importantly, bring the young and the old to the polls to vote. No matter how hard Donald Trump makes it, and he's going to make it extremely hard. Voter suppression is his key to holding on to power. No matter how hard he makes it this fall, you must vote. And we must have 75 to 80% voter turnout. Otherwise, we're screwed, blued, and tattooed. So please get on it, folks. Get your butt in gear and make sure you support candidates who support the Constitution. I don't care which side of the aisle that's on, but I know it's mostly not going to be on the Republican side. They know how to win races. They just don't know how to govern. So let's school up the Democrats, have them quit eating each other, and get elected. Thanks, MKO. Steve Unrain. Thank goodness my life is nearly over because I hate to see our country fall completely from grace. Trump was, and always will be the worst decision in American history. Well, Stephen, I hope your life isn't nearly over to begin with. But we've already seen the country fall completely from grace. We used to aspire to the ideals inside the Constitution. Now we routinely ignore them, or at least those in power do. And one of the reasons of that is because of the money in politics. If we get the money out of politics, money ruins everything. Get it out of politics, get it out of education, get it out of entertainment, and for the love of God, get it out of my job. Make journalism a public service again. Then you'll see a real good change. And Trump is indeed the worst decision in American history, made possible by 40 years of chicanery, 50 years, starting with Richard Nixon. Thanks, Stephen. I am free, BGM 8856. Rural hospitals in deep red districts are closing fast. Not only are they closing fast, but there are no areas with the hospitals closing, rural hospitals closing. There's not even wellness centers or trauma centers or, someplace where you can go to. There's not even any doctors. There are people I know of in Arizona, Utah, Montana, who have to drive an hour and a half just to get health care. How's that going to happen if you're suffering from a heart attack or you get in an automobile accident? You're done. Thank you, Donnie, for killing off the surplus population. It sounds like a scene from Scrooge or the Joker in Batman, but, never rub another man's rhubarb. Thanks, I am free. Jeffrey English, 1815. We cannot trust any numbers we receive from this regime. No shit. Remember, quote, if we don't test, there won't be cases. Now it's if there are no flag draped coffins, no one is dying. Well, actually, I do remember if we don't test, there won't be cases. I asked that question to Donald. I'm still flabbergasted at that answer. If we don't test, there won't be any more cases. He wouldn't even let homeless get tested, but that's another story. No flag draped coffins means no one is dying. The real truth of the matter is no news for Donald Trump. No, Donald Trump figures if there's no news about the war, no news is good news. So he's going to make sure that there's no news except what he spouts from his PEP secretary, chief propagandist, and moron faux Christian, Caroline Leavitt. Thanks, Jeff. Silly Sunny 2026. Ooh, I love that cartoon. Come on, USA, do something to stop this administration. Yeah, vote. That's your last chance this fall. Vote, or it won't come back in our lifetime. And folks, I got grandkids. I'd like them to grow up. This generation of kids are the first generation in the history of the United States that are less educated than their parents and have declining expectations. Many of them can't buy homes. Many of them don't even know how to spell homes. That's a different story. But at the end of the day, if we want to stop, we've got to stop this administration. Remember, No Child Left Behind. That left every child behind. We are uneducated. We are unenlightened, we are divisive, and we're killing each other for what? Donald Trump? I'm not doing it. Thanks, silly. What else we got in the pipe? Madhu B5N. Dozy Taco is assisting Putin, increasing the lowering oil per barrel, dropping sanctions on Russia. Well, I think what you're seeing is Donald Trump ineptly playing proxy war. We had some of the same dynamics during the Vietnam War. This is far more volatile because it is the Middle East, and it has been at war, and Iran is used to war and is prepared for war, and is the asymmetrical war that they will wage includes terrorism and killing innocent civilians wherever they want. And they're going to justify that by the killing of innocent civilians in a school. So the Russia part of it is probably the most volatile part of this, because we don't know where it goes. And the fact of the matter is, Russia is still bogged down in Ukraine. So I don't know that they can give much support to Iran, but I'm sure they could give them weapons, money, and of course intelligence, which they already have said they're doing, prolonging yet the war longer, making it even longer. Thanks, Madhu. Mad Mertz, is Comey a real boy? He sure sounds like his head is filled with sawdust. I don't know. I've been around him, and it rattles around a lot. I think there might be one cell battle, rattling around an empty hole, but that's just me. I don't know. I think he's an idiot, but I've always said that about most members of Congress, specifically from my home state. Thanks, Mad Mertz. Margaret Kellner, ooh, I like your cartoon too. Thanks for guest hosting, Brian. Be best. Oh, well, thank you. I give it a whirl every once in a while. Thanks, Margaret. Love you too. Dry Cracker, ship Melania to Iran. Well, I did see a cartoon the other day that I liked. It said it was like an AP announcement. This just out from the AP, breaking news. Donald Trump is shipping the biggest bomb it can over to Iran. Millions of tapes of the Melania documentary. Thanks, Dry Cracker. Karnak the Magnificent. I love Karnak. Witkoff is an idiot. That's insulting idiots. Witkoff is a moron. That's an insult to morons. I'm telling you, it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Witkoff doesn't know what he's talking about, as many people in the Donald Trump White House have no clue. Watching Pete Hegseth is actually excruciating for me, and I'm sure for many of the generals in the Department of Defense and the Pentagon, because Hegseth is a soy boy and a big chicken. But thanks, Karnak. His Divine Skidoo gifted 5 Mary Trump media memberships. I like your picture there. His Divine Skidoo. I am Freeze back. Main reason Harry's lost EAS because she and they did not listen to the people. Oh, main reason why Kamala Harris lost because she did not listen to the people. Well, the main reason why Kamala Harris lost is because not as many people voted for the Democrats as had voted last time with Biden. And I think polls show that afterwards it was African-American males who didn't vote for her, and and white males, I think, too, did not vote for her. And you could say that she didn't listen to the people, but I say that a lot of the difference between the Republicans and the Democrats, from what I see as a reporter, and now I'm not judging them on their politics. I'm just giving you the facts from what I've seen from interviewing and talking to them. The Republicans listen and hear what people say and spit it back out to them. They don't mean anything by it, but they know to grift people. You tell them what they want to hear. The Democrats usually, when I ask questions, tell me what it is I need to know and tell me what it is they think I should be voting for. And that doesn't work. Like I said, the Republicans really know how to run for office. They know how to grift. They just don't know how to govern. In other words, they can get Donald Trump elected, and then they will close down the government more times under Donald Trump than at any time in history. They can get elected. They can't govern. The Democrats can't get their people elected, but they can govern. Take a look at the fact that when they let Biden be Biden, I guess, when Biden got elected, they got the $1 trillion infrastructure bill passed that was bipartisan in nature. They can govern, and they're good at it. They're just horrible at getting elected. One party has no heart and the other has no head. Kim Rivas, as embarrassing as Trump and his 100% unqualified cabinet have been to the integrity of the United States, the rest of the world already knows what a wonderful country the United States is and always has been. As much of a laughingstock of the world Trump has made of the United States, the rest of the world knows this is not who we are. As soon as we get rid of the criminally insane idiot occupying our nation's capital. Well, Kim, I'd like to say that is true, but unfortunately, in my international travels, I have seen that a lot of people, particularly office holders, politicians, people on the street, don't know who we are anymore and are fearful that Donald Trump has led to not only an insane idiot occupying the nation's capital, but has brought out the insane idiot and endeared himself to the insanity of many others. The real challenge for the United States government going forward, once Donald Trump is over with, is to convince the rest of the world that we haven't lost our goddamn mind. And that's going to be tough. I put together a documentary on the first 100 days of Donald Trump. We're going to air it. We have a private showing at Cannes. Most of the people that have said they want to show up are asking me already, what's wrong with the United States? So they're not convinced, and I wish they were, that we're still who we are. But then, of course, you look at J.D. Vance and many members of this administration, you have to wonder, how screwed are we? But thank you, Kim. Philip Chi, they don't actually have real lawyers working at the DOJ these days, do they? They don't have, I'm not convinced they have actual people. I think they're lizards. No, I don't know. No, they don't have, they have people and they have law degrees, but maybe they got it from J.C. Penney. All I can tell you is they're not very cognizant of what the laws are or don't care. And Stephen Miller is one of those who has kind of usurped authority and told, the members of ICE and other federal law enforcement officials that it doesn't matter what the laws are. We're giving you immunity. You'll wonder why we're screwed. Thanks, Philip. Larry Martinez, 3 co-equal branches of government. It's our system. Deal with it. Well, I wish Congress would deal with it. They've ceded their authority. Personally, I would love to see them just, overturn most of the people in Congress and get people of common sense. Draft them. You, me, somebody. Just draft them, put them in Congress, and let them run rampant, because right now they've ceded all their authority to Donald Trump for what? I mean, it's ridiculous to come out and say, hey, it's our congressional authority to declare war. Well, we've led plenty and countless wars that weren't declared, including the Vietnam War. That was a police action, remember? So this is nothing new. This is Donald Trump taking advantage of the culpability of Congress. Thank you, Larry. Janine Pirro for prison in 2026. Go Karnak. I'll make that poster up. I just wonder if she drinks her wine out of a box. Anyway, moving on. DJ Cyber Music Lover. Nobody is above the law. So does that mean we can finally have Donald Trump prosecuted? I asked this question in the briefing room. I asked him. I asked 2 or 3 of his press secretaries. They all said, yes, no one's above the law, even Donald Trump. Which was a lie. They believe that there's laws for us and none for him. And I'll remind you that he has said on numerous occasions he can do anything he wants to do. And the Supreme Court gave him the ability to do it with the immunity for any official action. So, no, Donald Trump is above the law, unfortunately. Happy 61st birthday, 65th, baby. The MTM community adores. Well, thank you, and I adore you guys. I'm even older than that, but I look younger. I'm just 19. Thanks, Susan. Paul Gustafson, $5. Brian, word to remember Dilligos. Do I look like I give a shite? I'm of the not give a shit variety and often have been. I was asked one time, this is during the first Bush administration, when I was at a press conference in San Antonio, Texas, and asked George W. Bush a question, and George Herbert Walker Bush a question, and he told me to sit down, and I wouldn't sit down, and I had someone say, you're offending the president of the United States. You should care about that. And I looked at him and said, do I look like I give a shit? That's not my job to care about him. He's supposed to care about us. He works for us. Remember, folks, these are public servants. I love how people say, well, you have to be deferential to them. Why? I'm paying their salary. They work for me. Maybe they should be deferential to me. So I don't give a shit. Never have. But thanks, Paul. I'll remember that term. Karnak's back with $5. Any thoughts on what they plan to do with the 2,500 Marines being sent to the Middle East? Yeah, that's a good question. And here's the answer. Those Marines are expeditionary forces. They're the ones that hit the ground first. They're not there for any other reason. They're not there to guard people. They're not there to protect boats. Those are forces that will go on ground, and there'll be the ones like during the Gulf War that will sneak in and point the mirror at the object they want to blow up, so the stealth bombers can come in and release their ordnance, and things will blow up around everybody, and they'll wonder why. Those are the people that do that. That's why they're there. So yes, there will be ground operations. Hopefully none of them get hurt, but this is the beginning. This is like the beginning of Vietnam. This is how it began. First of bombing advisors, and then you send in the Marines, and then after that, you've got the Army, Navy, and everybody but the kitchen sink, and that's the frightening part. Thanks, Karnak. Silplow, Wyckoff real estate tycoon. New York buys buildings, and we all know about Jared. Thank God the deal fell through, and they tried to give away half of Ukraine and make big money in mutual business interests like oil in the Arctic and rebuilding. Yeah, well, look, if they're involved, any of those names, Wyckoff, Jared, Trump, it's all grift. Always has been, always will be. I am Freeze back. Texan found out about why they went to early vote. The system had deleted them. Yeah, you need to make sure, go in. Everyone, I recommend you check and make sure that you are registered to vote now. And check it. Not only now, but a couple of weeks before the election, before the primaries, 2 weeks before, whenever you're going to cast a vote, make sure that you are registered and haven't been driven off the rolls of registered voters, because that's also one of the games that they'll play with you come this fall. And remember, they're supposed to allow you to vote on site. In many states, they have on-site registration, but Donald Trump doesn't like that and wants to get rid of it. Jennifer, tell us, why is this happening and why can't they be stopped? This is not the ISA anymore. This is not the USA anymore. Well, we're not united. It is the states of America, but we're not united. And the reason why this can't be stopped, anybody ever see the Pogo cartoon? And it said, we have met the enemy and he is us. These are people that are that represent us. These are people born and raised in the United States, of American families, go to American schools, participate in American sports, participate in American activities. This is perhaps, as George Carlin said, maybe this is the best that we can do. They can't be stopped because, honestly, it's not the best that we can do. But what we have not done is get involved to the proper amount. Again, 60% turnout in elections is not a doable alternative to 75 or 80%. With 60% turnout in a race, and we consider that a great turnout, that means 30%, a super minority, plus one, can weigh over the rest of us and have their sway over the rest of us. And that's horrible, because if you look at it, a hardcore 25 to 30%, well, they were Tories and, sided with Great Britain during the Revolutionary War. 25 to 30% were the number of people that were in the Confederacy. 25 to 30% number of people who supported the Vietnam War. That group votes. That group gets out. They're loud and they're proud and they're ignorant and they love it. They're ignorant and they're arrogant. So this can only be stopped with the participation of every registered voter. Make sure you help your friends, neighbors vote this fall. And don't say, well, I'm not going to vote because I don't like either candidate. I'm sorry, folks. Democracy sometimes is the choosing between the lesser of two evils. You've got to move away from the bad first with something that's marginally better, and then push to get something better. Democracy isn't easy. It requires participation. Now I sound like, the American president, or I'll go with Thomas Jefferson instead of a movie. The price of liberty is eternal vigilance, and we're not very vigilant. And that's why we have this happening. Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, Brian, Mary's team, wonderful mods, and the great people in the chat. Have a great day. Stay safe. Yes, everyone. Thank you, Susan Williams, 2506. Thanks for having me here. I love you guys. It's always a pleasure. You can catch me on Substack, salon.com with a column every Friday. And always, I'm, the name of the podcast is called Just Ask the Question. I'm your host there, and I appreciate you having me here. Please like and subscribe to @MaryTrumpMedia and give her a dose of goodwill and help pay the bills with Mary. So thank you very much for having me. We'll catch you next time.